Well, welcome everyone. This is a presentation on psychological, also known as emotional abuse. My name is Melissa Weichel. Thank you for joining me today. So, let's talk about what psychological and emotional abuse is. That's where we're going to begin here. So, Safe Life defines psychological or emotional abuse as when a person repeatedly uses non physical actions to purposely hurt, scare, or manipulate someone else, or to influence or distort their thoughts. We understand this to mean that emotional abuse is when a perpetrator uses their own emotions and plays on the emotions of their victims to psychologically damage, threaten, or intimidate in order to control them. So, in general, any form of relationship is emotionally abusive when there is a constant pattern of abusive words and bullying behaviors that wear down a person's self esteem and undermine their mental health. So, emotional abuse involves controlling another person by using emotions to criticize, embarrass, shame, blame, or otherwise manipulate them. And the most common is in dating and married relationships. So, mental or emotional abuse can occur in any relationship, including friends, family members, and in the workplace. So, let's talk about the forms of emotional abuse. This consists of a person saying mean or toxic things to another person, making them to look bad or making fun of how they look, uh, always ridiculing or finding fault in everything they do. Nothing's good enough for them. So, here, let's talk about an example of a child being emotionally abused by a parent calling them names. And this sometimes happens when a parent gets frustrated with the child's behavior. So, one of the deepest needs of children is consistency, including the certain knowledge that they are unconditionally accepted and valued by those who love them. Small children crave the repetition and constant nature of certain stories in which the same words or phrases are used over and over. Children learn what to expect and they anticipate with delight the coming use of the word or phrase and feel in control of the story when they can repeat along with the storyteller. So the story always ends the same way. Life, remember that life has order. They learn how it feels to be right and know what lies ahead. And this produces a sense of control. When they are emotionally abused, it breaks down their self image, making them feel depressed or sad. Now, let's talk about additional types of emotional abuse. Uh, is when the perpetrator is not respecting a person's personal values, beliefs, or even their culture. They may mock them by using sarcasm. They may purposely avoid or forget special occasions or not responding to achievements or accomplishments. They may also make fun of people, but following it. This is a very, very common one by joking. I'm just joking after being mean to them because they see that the person is upset. So this is a very common one, like, calling them a name or saying something and then saying, "Oh, I'm just joking." And also causing someone to feel guilt and shame, forcing them to do something that they may not want to do. So now let's talk about some of the common places that emotional abuse takes place. It can take place in intimate partners by criticizing them or not showing them affection, being cold and distant just shutting them off, being quiet, not talking to them. It can also happen between parents and children by neglecting emotional needs or putting just these high expectations on them, making that too difficult to achieve. It can also happen in the workplace by humiliating or not including someone in the activities, just excluding them from what's going on in the workplace. This is very common nowadays is online social media by cyberbullying or harassing them online. This is very common as social media has really expanded. And when somebody doesn't have that in person, uh, it's easier to be mean to people if they're not face to face. So we see the online really picking up nowadays. So let's talk about who's most at risk and the factors that are important for emotional and psychological abuse. Now, anyone of any age, any gender, and from any background can be at risk for emotional abuse. However, there are some people that are more vulnerable than others, such as women and children. There are factors that increase vulnerability, and this includes an imbalance of power, like someone who's more powerful might be bullying somebody who's not, who's of lesser value. Social economic status, somebody that has more money can be emotionally abusing someone that does not have very much money. Also, the mental health or learning, like a social development issues, people who maybe aren't quite developed in their mental health or their learning. Also, emotional abuse is actually most commonly experienced by females, by women. That's who's at the highest for risk. Let's talk about how we can detect psychological abuse. So, the ways to identify psychological or emotional abuse consist of seeing someone who's upset or agitated constantly. They may avoid certain people, or they can act scared or timid in that person's presence. They may also be withdrawn, not wanting to communicate or participate in things that they used to do, or they may not respond to anyone for long periods of time. So if you see someone that has just socially withdrawn from you, family members, this can be the first red flag of psychological or emotional abuse. There may be other things going on as well, but this is some of the ways to detect. So let's talk about additional signs of abuse that you want to be watchful for. If they seem confused or disoriented after interacting with certain people, they may have trouble making decisions, always second guessing themselves. Um, they just can't make a decision. They're just like, oh, I don't know, and they no longer interact with family and friends or do activities. They're in fear of what if that perpetrator's there that's always abusing them, maybe at home, they don't want to be in public with them because in fear of that they're going to uh, talk down to them or embarrass them in different ways. So let's talk about the ways that emotional abuse affect people. It can cause depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, stress, and many forms of physical sickness. Now, just because this is an emotional abuse does not mean that it does not cause physical illnesses in people. People can physically get sick, have stomach aches, migraines, headaches, just because they've been emotionally abused. This is when it really gets deep into their being is when they're experiencing physical. It can manifest itself in the physical. So therefore there, because emotional abuse is not seen. Like, if you punch somebody, they're going to have a bruise possibly, but with emotional abuse, it's so deep down that it doesn't have any signs until it can physically manifest. So here's some additional effects that can happen, which being psychologically abused can cause fear. People are afraid of everything. They're afraid of people. It can also cause confusion. They can be confused as to what's going on. They can have feelings of insecurity, and it also creates trust issues, right? Because they're being emotionally abused by somebody saying mean things. They don't know who they can trust because after being abused, and sometimes the abuse can be from several people. So therefore, they don't trust anybody. And this can lead to thoughts of committing suicide. So we want to be careful here watching for the psychological and emotional abuse. So let's talk about the mental health issues that can arise from the abuse. That's depression, like we stated in the last slide, which is actually a mental health disorder. And it can cause chronic anxiety. They're anxious all the time. Uh, and then it can also cause post traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. So let's talk about the long term effects. So, the long term effects that people can experience from psychological abuse is they may struggle with emotional regulation and understanding their feelings. They don't understand why they're feeling this way, leading to difficulties in managing relationships and their emotions later in life. If they've been psychologically abused, and that relationship got ruined because they left or the person left them, as they move on to a new relationship, they're expecting that emotional abuse, or they begin to as it happens again, they really start shutting down. So coping mechanisms, many develop coping strategies that are not healthy, such as numbing emotions, drinking alcohol, taking pills. They may isolate themselves, which can hinder their ability to form healthy connections with others. The neurobiological changes are that research suggests that emotional abuse can lead to changes in the brain structure, affecting areas responsible for emotional understanding and self awareness, which it can have lasting effects on their mental health. So, this is a very serious abuse. Let's talk about some coping strategies that may help. So, first of all, it's important to recognize the abuse. Understanding that that person is experiencing emotional abuse is the first step. Emotional abuse can manifest through constant criticism, as we were talking about earlier. Also, manipulation, humiliation, and isolation from loved ones. So, acknowledging these behaviors is crucial for healing. Next, it can be important to journal. Journaling the reality of those experience and feelings. This practice can help the victim document that reality, making it easier to trust those memories and those feelings when the abuser tries to make them doubt themselves. So, also by writing down their thoughts, it can also serve as a therapeutic outlet. Next, it's important to set boundaries. If the victim must interact with the abuser, they need to establish clear boundaries. They need to choose not to engage in arguments or emotional reactions. So, this can be a powerful way to regain control over the situation and protect their emotional well-being. Next, it's important to seek support. Talking to a trusted friend, a counselor, or support group can be incredibly beneficial. It's important to share their experiences and their feelings, which can help validate their emotions and provide them with the encouragement to need that's needed to heal. Because sometimes they can feel like they're just going crazy, like I'm just not good enough. I can't do anything right. It's all me. And so they begin to not trust their own emotions. So let's talk about some additional coping strategies. It's important that they take care of themselves, doing things such as meditation, deep breathing, alone time. They need to avoid shame and guilt, and they need to educate themselves on emotional or psychological abuse, doing research and studying more. How can I get past this? How can I help even my perpetrator? What are the things that I can do to help myself or the perpetrator? So let's talk about, what does God say about psychological or emotional abuse? So let's start with Matthew 12:36 through 37. It says, "But I say to you that for every idle word men speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." Wow. Is that not a powerful scripture about what we speak and how important it is to speak life, not death? Because we know, as James 1:26 states, "If anyone among you thinks you're religious and does not bridle their tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless." So if you can't get a handle on the words that you speak, because we know, again, that you can speak life or speak death, as Proverbs 15:4 points out, a wholesome tongue is the tree of life. So, the negative breaks the spirit, the condemnation, the ugly words that we speak will break the spirit. So it's very, very important to bridle the tongue. And as I stated before in Proverbs 18:20-21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it eats its fruit. So we want to make sure that we're constantly speaking life, edifying, um, helping people, lifting them up, strengthening them with our words, not condemning. So we will be held accountable through with God. So it's important for us to remember. Now, how can we heal with God's word? Well, Psalms 46:1 tells us God is our refuge and strength, an ever present help in trouble. Understanding that God is our refuge can bring comfort during emotional turmoil. He is always there to support us through our pain, offering strength to help us endure. And also, like James 5:16 says, "Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed." Recognizing that you have a problem or that another person, in helping them to overcome that by confessing it. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. So confessing our pain and our struggles is an important aspect of healing. This verse encourages us to seek support from others through prayer, creating a powerful network of love and acceptability and accountability. Here's some helpful tips. Let them know that you believe in them and that they are not to blame, making sure to offer a safe and judgment-free space for them to feel supported. Help them create a plan to leave if they need to safely. That's if they feel unsafe in that environment. Making sure that we understand that trauma can resurface and extended support is needed. This is something that needs to be ongoing. So they should consider abuse intervention programs. Here are some resources. I want you to check your area for these resources. It's always good to have a list ready for yourself or for anyone that's in need. As counselors, this is highly recommended. There are times when we may not have all the tools, and so we need some help ourselves to help others. So I used a lot of information from We Are Safe Lives. You can Google them. They really have a lot of information on ending domestic violence. And a lot of times when we say domestic violence, people think of physical, but the emotional and psychological are just as damaging. And so We Are Safe Lives has a lot of tools to help with that. There's also the 988 suicide and crisis lifeline, and of course, mental health hotlines in your area, as I stated. Here are some references if you'd like me to send them to me. If you'd like more information, these are the references that I used for this PowerPoint presentation where I got all of the information. There's a video here also that you can watch on psychological and emotional abuse. So if you need them or want them later, please reach out. We are now going to go into the questions that I really would like you to think critically about. These are the two questions we're going to be discussing for the next few minutes. What signs do you recognize of emotional abuse that you have seen in yourself or another person? And the second question is, what are the steps you would take if you witnessed someone psychologically abuse a family member? So let's start with the first question. Who would like to answer? What signs do you recognize of emotional abuse that you have seen in yourself or another person?
Yes, can I come in?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, the first question is asking us to maybe reveal the signs that we have seen in ourselves. Me personally, I need to start with the uh, thanking you for giving us this information. It is a very credible information that we need. Uh, I've seen that emotional abuse is one aspect that is transferred from one vulnerable person to the other. Like in Uganda here, people, if we have uh, understood you very well in your presentation, then almost all families are undergoing emotional abuse. Because at
Yeah.
one point, you find children are being called names, you find children are being abused emotionally, and they are not given chance to express themselves. Likewise, also it happened to me, and if I am doing it, then it means it is just transferred from either my guardians, because I was once, as I was growing up, I was not having my biological parents. I was living with my guardians, so they could call you all sorts of names, and therefore, me myself also, you get used to those words, you get used to those abuse, and you may
Yes.
think that is the way to go. Or else uh, we are supposed to communicate like that. So this is what
Yes.
always happened to us when we are still young. Yes, to me
Mm.
myself, I also want to reveal that I've ever spoken harsh word to children. Yes, I've ever called them name. Maybe a child has done something, but you know that this children, this child this age can do anything to you in front of you, in your sight. So many times we always call them name. Look at you. For example,
Mm.
you may say, child, you are very stupid, and the child
Yes.
feel bad.
Yes.
but they will not show you that they are feeling bad because they don't have powers to do anything to you.
Hmm.
So emotionally, or else when we see somebody that we are having powers or we are having energy more than them, we feel we should talk to them in any way we feel like talking to them. So those are the things that happen to us. Emotional abuse are always, to me, I've seen it, it is a transfer. It is an aspect that is transferred from one vulnerable person to the other. Somebody
Yes.
who has been abused emotionally think
Yes.
that is the way to go.
Yes.
And he also,
Yes.
when he grows up, he will also, when he gets energy, he will also do the same. So that is my submission on this first question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was powerful, Patrick. And you made some great points there. That's why it's so important for us to get educated and to educate others. This is why this has been, I'm currently writing a book on psychological emotional abuse because I feel it's not talked about enough. It's just so common. Everybody thinks it's okay. And they don't realize that this is really the root of many mental health issues. And so that's why I want to educate. So I would also thank you for being so transparent with. I know we've all done it. I've done it myself, and so that's why it's so important for us to make these changes. You know, and recognize what we're doing, and we're hurting people, and so we need to make that change within ourselves. And so I do implore you to educate and educate your community and so that we can stop this. I feel even stronger that it's a generational curse that needs to be broken. So we need to pray over it. We need to educate and all of these things. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to make a quick comment?
Yes, I think I have something to say also.
Go ahead.
Well, based on psychological abuse, you spoke a lot of things, but just like you said, psychological abuse deals with one superior dominating the life of another inferior to actually cause or belittle them in one way or the other, making them have depression in their hearts and anxiety. So I would say, personally, I did not have any encounter of myself yet, but I have a scenario of a friend who was taken out to go and work from the city. She was taken out as a maid. So every time her bosses were instructing, especially the woman, she would always use rude words, and at times she will speak words that will psychologically hurt this person. Words like "I will take you back to the village where you belong," something like that. Even though it's a small mistake, so I
Yeah.
would regard that as one of the points you mentioned on work or humiliation. So rather,
Yeah.
somebody, instead of speaking humbly, they will want to remind you about your dead parents. I will send you back to the village. Uh,
Mm.
you think you are going to eat freely in my house and all that. So making it so unbearable at work, and at times makes somebody also suffer emotionally and psychologically. And also personally, I think I have ever applied on uh, children, and I've had even women in my society here use words like, "You child, you're very stubborn. It looks like you're going to be a prostitute." So somebody will always, a young child will take up those words and sometimes will work for them in the future and it will affect them negatively. Yes, so
Mm.
that is briefly how I would say, but I have a lot of other examples, but rather because of time, I would say thank you for
Yeah.
now. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we can definitely continue on. So let me just thank you. Thank you for being here.